You know that feeling. When the day is finally over and you sit down, and instead of relief, there's just emptiness, a heaviness that has no name. Tonight, we're going somewhere safe with that feeling, into the science of what your mind has been doing all day, without you ever knowing. Wherever you are right now, lying in the dark, covers pulled close, the sounds of the day finally fading. Let your body settle into this moment. We'll trace the hidden labor of 100 mind science facts about emotional exhaustion and healing, from the quiet work your brain performs behind every feeling, to the invisible cost of caring, to the place where rest finally begins. This gentle space exists for every tired mind searching for somewhere to land. If it finds you at the right moment tonight, a soft like or quiet share could carry it to someone else who needs this exact kind of rest. One worn-out soul finding peace, one sleepy soul at a time. Let your shoulders drop now. Feel the surface beneath you holding your full weight. You don't need to understand anything tonight. Just notice that slow release. The way tension leaves the jaw, the hands, the chest, like a door finally closing on everything that asked something of you today. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You're resting where the mind finally stops translating itself for others. Let your thoughts soften into what they were before words. And now we begin. Your brain never actually stops working, but it does change what it works on. Throughout your waking hours, the brain is constantly processing incoming information, managing responses, and regulating emotional tone. What most people don't realize is that this regulation, the quiet, invisible work of managing how you feel, is metabolically expensive. Brain imaging research consistently shows that emotional processing draws heavily on the prefrontal cortex, the anterior cingulate cortex, and the amygdala simultaneously. These regions don't just respond to feelings, they negotiate them, suppress them, contextualize them, and prepare appropriate responses, all day, without a break. The tiredness you feel tonight is not weakness. It is the afterglow of genuine, invisible labor. Emotional exhaustion has a different signature in the brain than physical fatigue. When your muscles are tired, the signals are largely peripheral, coming from the body itself. But emotional exhaustion originates centrally, in the brain's regulatory networks. Neuroimaging studies have distinguished between the two states, finding that emotionally drained individuals show reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex and heightened reactivity in the amygdala, even when their bodies are physically rested. This is why you can sleep 8 hours and still wake up feeling hollow, the body recovered. But the circuits that manage meaning, patience, and care, those are still running on empty. The amygdala processes emotional information before the conscious mind is even aware of it. This small, almond-shaped structure deep in the brain responds to emotional cues, a tense tone of voice, an uncertain expression, a situation that feels unsafe, in as little as 12 milliseconds. That is faster than conscious thought. Every interpersonal moment you navigated today, every email you read with an edge to it, every conversation where you had to measure your words, your amygdala was already responding before you had a chance to decide how to feel. It has been running quietly all day. No wonder it needs rest. The prefrontal cortex is the brain's executive center, and it has a finite capacity for regulation. Research from cognitive neuroscience describes this capacity as something that can be depleted, not permanently, but meaningfully across the course of a day. The prefrontal cortex handles decision-making, impulse control, social judgment, and emotional regulation, all from the same neural resource pool. When you spend your morning managing difficult conversations, your afternoon in back-to-back meetings, and your evening suppressing frustration, you are drawing on the same reservoir. By nightfall, that reservoir is genuinely lower. The science is clear. Regulatory fatigue is real, measurable, and cumulative. Research suggests humans make an extraordinary number of decisions each day, many estimates reaching into the tens of thousands. Most of these are micro-decisions. What to say, how to phrase it, whether to speak at all, how to respond to a look or a silence. Work in decision fatigue, developed by social psychologists over the past 2 decades, has shown that decision quality degrades across the day as cognitive resources are spent. But what is less commonly discussed is that emotional decisions, the ones involving social judgment, empathy calibration, and relational navigation, are among the most cognitively costly. Every small choice to be kind, patient, or professional when you didn't feel it was a genuine act of mental effort. Whether the number is 10,000 or 30,000, the cost accumulates in ways the brain registers honestly by nightfall. There is a phenomenon researchers call surface acting, and it costs more than you might expect. Surface acting occurs when a person expresses an emotion they do not actually feel, in order to meet a social or professional expectation. Smiling through frustration, sounding calm when you are anxious, expressing enthusiasm you don't have. Studies in occupational psychology have consistently linked surface acting to higher levels of emotional exhaustion, burnout, and end-of-day depletion. The brain registers the gap between internal experience and external expression as a form of cognitive dissonance. And resolving that gap, over and over throughout a day, is tiring in a way that sleep alone can sometimes struggle to repair. The body keeps a record of emotional labor in ways that are biochemically measurable. Cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, follows a natural daily curve, high in the morning, gradually declining through the day. But on days of high emotional demand, cortisol levels remain elevated longer into the afternoon and evening, disrupting that natural descent. Research published in journals of psychoneuroimmunology has shown that chronic exposure to high-demand social environments, caregiving, conflict management, public-facing work, alters cortisol rhythms over time. The body treats prolonged emotional effort as a sustained mild stressor. Tonight, your cortisol is finally beginning to fall. Your nervous system is remembering how to let go. Empathy activates the same neural circuits as direct experience. When you witness someone else's pain, or their frustration, or their fear, the brain does not simply observe and categorize. It simulates. Mirror neuron systems, combined with the insular and anterior cingulate cortex, generate a partial internal replica of what the other person is feeling. This is the neurological basis of compassion. But it also means that every time you held space for someone today, listened, absorbed, reflected back, your brain was running a kind of internal emotional simulation, caring in the most literal neurological sense. is participatory, and participation takes energy. The vagus nerve is sometimes called the wandering nerve, and it connects the brain to nearly every major organ in the body. It plays a central role in the parasympathetic nervous system, which governs the body's rest and digest state. During emotionally demanding interactions, vagal tone often decreases, meaning the body shifts toward a mild stress alert posture. Heart rate variability, which is a measure of vagal tone, tends to be lower on high-stress days and higher during genuine rest. Research from the HeartMath Institute and several university labs has demonstrated that slow, intentional breathing can restore vagal tone within minutes. The breath you just took is already helping. So here is what we know at the beginning of this journey. Emotional exhaustion is not a character flaw, and it is not imagined. It is a physiological state, produced by real neural labor, real hormonal cast, and real structural depletion. The tens of thousands of decisions, the surface acting, the empathic simulations, the prefrontal regulation, all of it leaves a measurable trace in the brain and body. What your mind has been doing all day is genuinely difficult work, and tonight, understanding that is the first step towards something the science calls restorative rest. Not just sleep, something deeper, something that begins with permission. The brain has a dedicated network for social processing, and it rarely gets time off. The default mode network, which activates during rest and mind wandering, overlaps significantly with the brain's social cognition circuits. Researchers at Harvard and other institutions have noted that when we are not engaged in a task, the brain defaults not to emptiness, but to social simulation. We replay conversations, anticipate interactions, rehearse responses. This means that even moments you thought of as rest today, sitting in traffic, waiting for a meeting to start, your brain was likely still engaged in social processing. The mental workday is longer than the clock suggests. Cognitive reappraisal is one of the brain's most powerful emotional regulation tools, and also one of its most energy-intensive. Reappraisal means consciously reframing a situation to change its emotional meaning. Viewing a difficult colleague as someone under their own stress, treating a frustrating delay as an opportunity to pause. This strategy, widely studied in clinical psychology and shown to produce lasting reductions in negative affect, requires significant prefrontal engagement. People who use reappraisal frequently have better long-term emotional health. But in the short term, on any given day, choosing to reframe repeatedly, choosing not to react, is genuinely costly. Every moment of chosen patience is a small withdrawal from a finite account. The anterior cingulate cortex monitors conflict, not just external conflict, but the internal kind. Every time you held something back today, every time you felt one thing and did another, every moment of dissonance between what you wanted to say and what you actually said, the anterior cingulate cortex tracks all of it. Studies in affective neuroscience have shown that sustained internal conflict, the kind produced by prolonged suppression, unresolved tension, or ambiguous social situations, keeps this region chronically activated. And chronic activation, like any sustained effort, produces fatigue. The body is a remarkably honest accountant. It always knows what you have spent. Humans are wired for social belonging, and perceived threats to that belonging activate the same neural pathways as physical discomfort, which is why emotional hurt has always been real, not imagined. Research by Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA used brain imaging to show that social exclusion, criticism, and interpersonal rejection activate the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex and the anterior insula, regions involved in processing that same discomfort. This finding reframed our understanding of emotional hurt. When someone was dismissive, when a conversation felt cold, when you felt unseen today, the brain processed those moments as genuinely painful. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish as cleanly between physical and emotional hurt as we once believed. There is a phenomenon called emotional contagion, the unconscious transmission of mood and affect between people. Research has shown that humans automatically mimic the facial expressions, postures, and vocal tones of others, and that this mimicry feeds back into our own emotional experience. This means that on days when you were surrounded by anxious, irritable, or depleted people, your nervous system was absorbing some of that, not because you are weak, but because you are human, wired for attunement in a way that makes connection possible. The same biology that allows you to comfort someone also allows their distress to settle briefly into you. Both things are true. Working memory, the brain's short-term holding space for active information, has a capacity of roughly 4 chunks at any given moment. According to cognitive research, during emotionally complex days, working memory is frequently occupied not just by tasks, but by social and emotional content, unresolved conversations, lingering worries, anticipated interactions. These take up space that might otherwise support clarity and focus. Research in cognitive load theory, originally developed by John Sweller in the 1980s and refined extensively since, has confirmed that emotional material imposes its own form of cognitive load. The mind that feels scattered at day's end is often simply full of things it hasn't yet had a place to put. Interoception, the brain's perception of the body's internal state, plays a larger role in emotional experience than was previously understood. The insula, a folded cortical region hidden deep within the brain, continuously monitors bodily signals, heart rate, gut tension, muscle tightness, breathing rhythm. This internal monitoring is the substrate of what we call gut feelings. Research by Antonio Damasio, building on his somatic marker hypothesis, has demonstrated that emotion is not purely mental. It is deeply embodied. Every tightening of the chest, every held breath, every clenched jaw from today's stresses, your brain registered all of it. Emotional exhaustion lives in the body as much as the mind. During periods of prolonged or chronic emotional stress, the body's inflammatory signaling tends to shift, with certain immune proteins called cytokines becoming more active over time. Researchers have found that this immune-brain conversation helps explain why sustained emotional depletion often carries a physical quality: the heaviness, the aching, the desire to lie still. The body is not being dramatic. It is responding to a biochemical environment that genuinely signals the need for rest and recovery. And tonight, that same signaling is beginning to shift back toward the quiet of restoration. The hippocampus, the brain's primary memory consolidation center, is also deeply involved in emotional processing. It works in close coordination with the amygdala, providing contextual framing for emotional memories. On difficult days, the hippocampus is tasked not only with encoding new information, but with integrating emotionally charged experiences into the broader narrative of who you are and what your life means. This integration is not trivial work. Research has shown that chronic stress can affect the hippocampus's capacity over time. Sleep restores that capacity. Tonight's rest is not passive. It is rebuilding something. There is a difference between feeling tired and feeling depleted, and the distinction matters neurologically. Tiredness, in its simplest form, reflects the accumulation of adenosine in the brain, a byproduct of neural activity that builds during wakefulness and creates sleep pressure. Depletion, as emotional exhaustion researchers describe it, reflects something additional: the reduced capacity of regulatory systems to continue their work effectively. You can address tiredness with sleep. Depletion requires something more. It requires that during sleep, the regulatory networks actually receive a period of sustained low demand. This is why the quality of rest matters, not just the quantity, and why learning to truly put the day down is a skill worth developing. The concept of allostatic load describes the cumulative wear on the body and brain from repeated stress responses over time. Originally developed by Bruce McEwen at Rockefeller University, allostatic load research has shown that sustained emotional demands without adequate recovery gradually shift the baseline of the body's stress systems. The threshold for activation lowers. Recovery takes longer. What once required a major stressor to trigger begins to be triggered by smaller ones. Many people recognize this pattern in themselves. A season of life when everything felt harder, when small irritations became large, when the reserve that used to carry them through was simply thinner. Rest is how that reserve is rebuilt. People in caregiving roles, parents, healthcare workers, teachers, therapists, customer service workers, show consistently higher rates of emotional exhaustion in occupational research. This is not because they care too much, as is sometimes suggested. It is because the neurological demands of sustained empathy, social attunement, and emotional labor are genuinely high, and because these roles often provide fewer built-in opportunities for deactivation. Research on compassion fatigue, a concept developed in trauma nursing and expanded broadly, has found that the very qualities that make people effective caregivers, sensitivity, attunement, emotional responsiveness, also mean they carry the weight of their work more deeply and need more intentional recovery. The wound and the gift are often the same thing. Suppressing emotion does not reduce its physiological impact. It often amplifies it. James Gross at Stanford University has conducted foundational research comparing emotional suppression with cognitive reappraisal. He found that suppression, simply pushing a feeling down, reduces the outward expression of emotion, but does not reduce the physiological arousal associated with it. In some cases, it increases it. The heart rate remains elevated. The skin conductance stays high. The internal experience persists or intensifies, even as the face remains composed. The emotional labor of appearing fine, when you are not entirely fine, is among the most exhausting forms of psychological work a person can perform. Social media and digital communication have extended the emotional workday in ways that research is only beginning to fully document. A growing body of work in digital psychology has found that the constant monitoring of social signals online the passing of tone in messages, the management of self-presentation, the ambient awareness of others' reactions, activates many of the same neural circuits as in-person social processing. The brain does not cleanly distinguish between a difficult conversation in a hallway and a difficult thread in an inbox. Both register as social demands. The mind that is connected all day has been working all day. Setting the phone down is not an indulgence. It is a neurological necessity. Here is the thread that has been forming through these first facts. Emotional exhaustion is the natural and predictable consequence of being a social, feeling, regulating human being in a demanding world. The amygdala that never sleeps, the prefrontal cortex that negotiates every moment, the vagal system that reads every room, the mirror neurons that absorb the feelings of others. All of them have been running, all day, on your behalf. What you feel tonight is not a failure of resilience. It is evidence of full engagement. The science does not ask you to feel less. It asks you, for just these next hours, to let the circuits rest. Right now, your brain is beginning to sort today, deciding what to keep, what to soften, what to release. You don't need to help it. You don't need to review anything, resolve anything, or understand anything more tonight. Your nervous system knows how to do this. It has been doing it every night of your life. Just feel the weight of your body, the warmth of the bed, the slight slowing of your breath. Something in you already knows how to let go. It has always known. Now we continue. The glymphatic system is the brain's overnight cleaning network, and it depends almost entirely on sleep to function. First described in research by Micah Nedergaard at the University of Rochester, the glymphatic system uses cerebrospinal fluid to flush metabolic waste products from between neurons during sleep. Among the substances cleared is beta amyloid, a protein associated with neurodegeneration. During wakefulness, the brain's interstitial space contracts, slowing this clearance. During sleep, the space expands by up to 60%, dramatically increasing fluid flow. The emotional residue of the day, in the form of neurochemical byproducts, is among what the brain begins clearing tonight. The work of restoration has already started. REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, plays a specific and profound role in emotional processing. Research by Matthew Walker and colleagues at the University of California, Berkeley, has proposed that REM sleep provides a period of neurochemical quiet, specifically reduced levels of norepinephrine, the brain's stress response neurotransmitter, during which emotionally charged memories are reprocessed. During this window, the emotional tone of a memory can be separated from its content. The memory is retained. The sting is softened. This is why, after a good night's sleep, experiences that felt overwhelming the night before often feel more manageable in the morning. REM sleep is not just rest. It is emotional therapy, offered freely, every night, without appointment. The default mode network, the brain's resting state network, is not idle during quiet moments. It is engaged in something researchers describe as self-referential processing, weaving recent experiences into an ongoing sense of who you are and what your days mean. This is a documented function of the network, though the full depth of what it produces remains one of neuroscience's most fascinating open questions. This processing is disrupted by emotional exhaustion. When the regulatory networks are depleted, the default mode network tends to ruminate rather than integrate, cycling through unresolved events rather than weaving them into meaning. One of the quiet gifts of deep sleep is restoring the conditions for genuine integration, to let experience become understanding, rather than circling. There is a structure in the brainstem called the locus coeruleus, small, ancient, and profoundly important. It is the brain's primary source of norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter involved in arousal, attention, and the stress response. During emotionally demanding days, the locus coeruleus is in a state of sustained activation, alerting other brain regions to potential threat, maintaining vigilance, keeping the system primed to respond. Research has shown that the locus coeruleus requires consistent, high-quality sleep to restore its capacity. When sleep is disrupted over time, locus coeruleus function degrades, contributing to elevated anxiety, reduced resilience, and a lowered threshold for emotional reactivity. What you are doing tonight, lying still, breathing slowly, is giving it exactly what it needs. Chronic emotional stress has measurable effects on the prefrontal cortex's structure over time. Research using MRI has found that prolonged periods of high stress are associated with reduced gray matter volume in prefrontal regions involved in emotional regulation. This is not a permanent fate. The brain retains significant plasticity and recovery through adequate sleep. Reduced stress and meaningful rest can support structural restoration. But it does illustrate how seriously the brain takes sustained emotional demand. The architecture itself responds to what is asked of it, and it responds equally to periods of genuine recovery. Restoration is not optional for the brain. It is architectural. The amygdala and the prefrontal cortex exist in a relationship of mutual regulation. In calm conditions, the prefrontal cortex exerts inhibitory control over the amygdala, dampening reactive responses, providing context, moderating fear. Under conditions of fatigue and depletion, this inhibitory control weakens. The amygdala becomes more reactive. Emotions feel closer to the surface. Small frustrations loom larger. This is not a personality change. It is a temporary shift in the functional balance between two brain regions, one that resolves with sleep and recovery. The irritability you may have felt today, the way small things caught you off guard, that was your prefrontal cortex telling you it needed rest. It was telling the truth. Research using brain imaging has found that even a single night of significant sleep deprivation can dramatically amplify amygdala reactivity. In some studies, by more than half, compared to a well-rested brain. The underrested brain also shows reduced functional connectivity between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, meaning the regulatory relationship between them is weakened. The result is a system that is more easily triggered and less able to self-correct. The emotional instability that can follow periods of poor sleep is not weakness. It is predictable neuroscience, and it is reversible with rest. The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA axis, governs the body's cortisol stress response. It operates on a feedback loop. Stress activates the axis. Cortisol is released, and eventually the elevated cortisol signals the system to stand down. In well-regulated individuals, this loop functions smoothly, but in individuals experiencing chronic emotional overload, the feedback loop can become dysregulated. either producing too much cortisol or producing too little as the system fatigues. Research on deep emotional fatigue, the kind that builds slowly over months, consistently finds HPA axis dysregulation as a hallmark feature. Sleep, and specifically deep, slow-wave sleep, is one of the most powerful reset mechanisms available for the HPA axis. Emotional granularity, the ability to make fine distinctions between emotional states, is associated with better emotional regulation and mental health outcomes. Research by Lisa Feldman Barrett at Northeastern University has shown that people who can distinguish between similar emotional states, identifying not just that they feel bad, but whether they feel anxious, or disappointed, or lonely, or overwhelmed, respond to those states more effectively and recover from them more quickly. The simple act of naming what you are feeling, with precision, activates prefrontal cortical regions involved in regulation. Right now, whatever you are feeling, tired, relieved, hollow, grateful, gently noticing it is already a form of care. Early research by Daka Keltner at Berkeley and colleagues has suggested that experiences of awe, that quiet sense of something larger than oneself, may be associated with lower levels of certain inflammatory markers and a reduction in self-referential rumination. The finding is preliminary, and researchers continue to explore the connection, but the direction it points toward is worth sitting with quietly tonight. The vastness of the night sky, a quiet piece of music, the scale of time. These are not trivial comforts. They are the kind of gentle interruptions to self-focused thought that the depleted mind genuinely benefits from. Letting something larger than the day's demands surround your tired mind is, in itself, a form of rest. There is a concept in Buddhist psychology called papanyaka, often translated as mental proliferation, which describes the mind's tendency to elaborate, extend, and complicate experience through associative thinking. Modern cognitive neuroscience has found a structural correlate: the default mode network's tendency toward rumination under conditions of unresolved stress. The mind that keeps returning to a conversation from this morning, rehearsing what it should have said. That is a mind attempting to resolve what feels unresolved. It is not weakness. It is the brain doing the only thing it knows to do when the day has not yet been fully processed. But there is a point at which the resolution work is better served by rest than by continued processing. You have reached that point tonight. Social baseline theory, developed by James Cohen at the University of Virginia, proposes that the human brain evolved to expect regular proximity to trusted others, and that this proximity literally reduces the neural cost of threat processing. When people feel safely connected, the brain allocates fewer resources to vigilance and stress monitoring. Loneliness, by contrast, increases those costs. Research has shown that chronically lonely individuals show higher amygdala reactivity and greater activation of the brain's threat detection systems. If today included moments of disconnection, of not being truly seen, of carrying more than felt fair, your brain registered that as additional load. You were not imagining the extra weight of aloneness. The parasympathetic nervous system, often called the rest and digest system, is not the absence of the stress system. It is an active biological state with its own physiology. Heart rate slows. Digestion activates. Blood is redistributed away from the large muscles and toward the organs of restoration. Pupils constrict. The immune system shifts its priorities. The transition from sympathetic to parasympathetic dominance that happens as you lie down. Breathe slowly and release the day is a genuine physiological event. It takes time. It takes permission. And it takes, sometimes, a quiet voice telling the nervous system that the day is over, that the monitoring can stop, that it is safe to soften. Self-compassion, the capacity to treat oneself with the same kindness one might offer a good friend, has measurable neurobiological correlates. Research by Kristin Neff at the University of Texas and neuroscientific studies building on her work have found that self-compassion practices activate the brain's affiliative systems, the same circuits involved in warm, safe social connection, while simultaneously reducing threat-related activation in the amygdala. Critically, self-compassion appears to offer the brain many of the same regulatory benefits as receiving external comfort from a trusted other. The gentleness you bring to yourself tonight is not metaphorical self-care. It is actual neurological first aid. Here, at the midpoint of our first journey through the evidence, something has emerged. The brain that managed your day, that regulated, suppressed, empathized, decided, performed, and absorbed, is the same brain that needs tonight to restore itself. These are not two separate systems. They are one system, in two different phases of its work. The exhaustion is the evidence of engagement, and the rest is not the reward for surviving the day. It is the biological requirement of a brain that intends to show up fully, again, for whatever comes next. You have earned this rest precisely because you gave today everything. The science sees that, and it says, enough, now let go. Take a slow breath. Feel where your body meets the bed. You've been listening to what your mind has been carrying all this time, and perhaps some of it sounds familiar. We're exploring the science of being human together. You and I, in the quiet. There's no rush. Let's continue. Gently. One influential perspective in neuroscience, developed by Lisa Feldman Barrett, proposes that emotions are not fixed, pre-programmed responses from ancient brain circuits, but rather predictions. The brain uses past experience and current bodily signals to construct what we feel, moment by moment. This view remains a lively discussion in the field, but what it suggests, that the body's signals can shift the emotional experience, has meaningful practical implications for tonight. Slow, deep breathing directly alters the body's interoceptive signals, reducing heart rate, lowering blood pressure, decreasing tension in the diaphragm and chest. These changes feed back to the brain as signals of safety. The brain, receiving calmer body signals, updates its predictions, and the emotion follows. You are not just breathing tonight. You are giving your brain different data, and your brain, faithful to the evidence it receives, will change its construction accordingly. The breath is medicine. Oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, plays a role in emotional recovery that extends well beyond its reputation as a social connector. Research has found that oxytocin reduces amygdala reactivity, increases feelings of safety, and supports faster recovery from stressful experiences. It is released not only through physical affection and close social bonds, but also through warmth, gentle touch, kind words, and through certain internal states that resemble psychological safety. The conditions you have created for yourself tonight, the quiet, the warmth, the soft voice, the absence of demand, are conditions that support oxytocin release. Your body is choosing to feel safer right now. Let it. Serotonin is synthesized primarily in the gut. Approximately 95% of the body's serotonin is produced in the gastrointestinal tract, not the brain. This gut-produced serotonin does not cross the blood-brain barrier, but it plays an important role in regulating gut motility and communicating with the vagus nerve. The brain produces its own serotonin for mood regulation and sleep. But the gut-brain axis through which the two systems communicate has emerged as a significant focus of neuroscience research. Chronic stress alters gut microbiome composition, which in turn affects vagal signaling and emotional tone. The body's emotional life is not contained in the head. It extends all the way down. And tonight, that entire system is quieting together. The concept of psychological safety, first studied in organizational contexts by Amy Edmondson at Harvard Business School and later explored in clinical psychology, has a biological substrate. When individuals feel psychologically safe, prefrontal cortical engagement increases, amygdala reactivity decreases, and cognitive flexibility, the ability to consider multiple perspectives and generate creative responses, expands. Psychological safety is not simply an abstract social good. It is a neurological state. And the absence of it, the sustained hypervigilance of not knowing how you will be received, of monitoring and managing the impressions you make, is one of the less visible sources of emotional exhaustion in everyday life. Tonight, that monitoring is no longer required. Neuroplasticity, the brain's capacity to reorganize itself in response to experience, operates across the lifespan, but it is powerfully concentrated in sleep. During slow-wave sleep, synaptic connections that were strengthened during the day are consolidated, while those that received less use are gently pruned. This process, described by synaptic homeostasis theory, maintains the brain's efficiency and prevents the signal-to-noise ratio from degrading over time. Emotional experiences from the day are encoded as synaptic changes. Sleep determines which of those changes persist, which soften, and which integrate into the larger structure of who you are. The person who wakes tomorrow will be very slightly different from the person who fell asleep tonight, always growing toward something. The phenomenon of ego depletion, the temporary reduction in the capacity for self-regulation after extended effort, has been one of psychology's most actively debated findings over the past decade. While some large replication studies have produced mixed results, other research continues to support the core idea that sustained volitional effort shifts something meaningful in how the mind approaches the next demand. What researchers across different positions agree on is this: the motivation to stop, to rest, to withdraw from demands tonight is a real signal worth honoring. Your body is not giving up. It is accurately assessing what it needs. Sleep restores dopaminergic function, the brain's reward and motivation circuitry. Research has found that after sleep deprivation, the striatum, which is a key reward processing region, becomes hyperactivated in response to rewarding stimuli, and simultaneously, sensitivity to loss and threat also increases. This means the sleep-deprived brain is simultaneously more impulsive toward reward and more sensitive to threat. A combination that makes emotional regulation considerably harder. A well-rested brain is not just calmer, it is more accurate in its assessments. It responds to good things with appropriate pleasure, and to difficulties with more measured proportion. Rest doesn't make you softer, it makes you clearer. The practice of mindfulness, sustained, non-judgmental attention to present moment experience, produces measurable changes in brain structure and function with consistent practice. Here, studies using MRI have found increased cortical thickness in the insula and prefrontal cortex among experienced meditators, and reduced amygdala gray matter volume, a change associated with reduced reactivity. Even brief mindfulness interventions, including single sessions of focused breathing, have been shown to reduce cortisol, lower heart rate, and improve subjective feelings of calm. The quality of attention you bring to this moment, not analyzing, not resolving, just noticing, is itself a form of practice. You are already doing it. We are halfway through our journey, and here is what the middle of this story has revealed. The same brain that is most vulnerable to exhaustion is also the brain most capable of recovery. The prefrontal cortex that depletes is also the cortex that regulates and heals. The amygdala that became reactive today is the amygdala that will calibrate again with rest. The hippocampus that encoded the day's difficulties is the hippocampus that will process and soften them overnight. The system is built not just for effort, but for restoration. You are not broken from today. You are at the bottom of a breath. And the next part is the exhale. The memory you are most certain of, the one that feels vivid and real, is actually reconstructed each time you visit it. Your brain is not a recording device. It is a storytelling device, always revising, always editing toward meaning. Right now, even tonight's difficult moments are already being rewritten, not erased, gently composed into something you can carry more lightly. You don't have to do anything. The revision is already underway, and we continue. The brain's threat detection systems evolved in an environment where most stressors were brief and physical. A predator, a conflict, a sudden danger, and then resolution, recovery, return to baseline. The modern emotional landscape presents something different. Sustained, low-grade, unresolved social stresses that never fully conclude. The open email, the unfinished conversation, the ambient awareness of being evaluated. These persistent, unresolved stressors keep the threat systems in a low state of activation without ever providing the resolution the nervous system expects. This mismatch between the brain's ancient architecture and the modern world is one of the quiet roots of chronic emotional exhaustion. Boundaries, the psychological limits that define where one person's emotional responsibility ends and another's begins, have a neurological function. When boundaries are consistently unclear or violated, the brain's threat monitoring systems activate and remain activated, producing a sustained vigilance that is exhausting over time. Research in attachment and interpersonal neuroscience has found that clear. Predictable relational boundaries allow the nervous system to deactivate more fully during recovery periods. The ability to say, "Not tonight," to genuinely put down the day's emotional obligations at the door, is not selfishness. It is the condition under which the nervous system can actually rest. nature exposure has measurable effects on the prefrontal cortex's recovery from attentional and emotional fatigue. Attention restoration theory, developed by Rachel and Stephen Kaplan, proposes that natural environments provide a form of involuntary, effortless attention that allows the directed attention systems of the prefrontal cortex to recover. Research has found that even brief exposures to natural imagery, photographs of forests, sounds of water, views of open sky, produce measurable reductions in cortisol and improvements in mood and attention. The ambient images your mind may construct of quiet forests, open water, or soft darkness as you drift tonight are not idle fancy. They are functioning as therapy. The concept of psychological detachment from work, truly stepping away mentally, not just physically, has been studied extensively in occupational psychology by Sabine Sonnentag. Her research consistently shows that individuals who achieve genuine psychological detachment during non-work hours report lower emotional exhaustion, better sleep quality, and higher well-being, even when their workload remains high. Detachment is not about caring less. It is about maintaining the neural separation between the mode of active engagement and the mode of genuine restoration. The mind that never fully leaves work never fully rests, and the mind that cannot rest cannot give its best. Both halves of that cycle matter equally. The emotional demands of the day have kept your body in a state of alertness longer than its natural design intended. Now, as the light has faded and the demands have quieted, the body's circadian rhythm, the roughly 24-hour internal clock, governed largely by the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the hypothalamus, is coordinating its shift toward recovery. Among the most important signals is the timing of cortisol. In a well-regulated circadian rhythm, cortisol peaks in the early morning to support alertness and gradually declines through the day toward evening. The quiet darkness in which you are lying right now is already supporting your cortisol descent. The day is biochemically ending. The sustained alertness that emotional exhaustion produces kept your system running past its natural wind-down point. Now, as darkness signals the pineal gland to release melatonin, the hormone that tells the brain and body to prepare for sleep, that balance is being gently restored. Melatonin is not a sleeping pill. It does not force sleep. It is a timing signal. It tells the body, now is the time. The rest of the preparation, the adenosine pressure, the parasympathetic shift, the slowing of thought, follows from that signal. Right now, in the quiet and the dark, your pineal gland is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Slow wave sleep, the deepest stage of non-REM sleep, is where much of the body's most profound restoration takes place. Growth hormone is primarily released during this stage, stimulating tissue repair, immune function, and cellular restoration throughout the body. The emotional demands of today mean your system will benefit most from reaching this depth tonight. Research suggests that days of genuine effort, physical or emotional, are often followed by richer, slow-wave sleep, as if the body calibrates its depth of rest to match the depth of the day's investment. The more you gave, the more the body will reclaim. Emotional memories are not stored in a single location. They are distributed networks. The emotion and the memory are processed by different systems. The amygdala encodes the emotional salience. The hippocampus encodes the contextual content. The prefrontal cortex provides the meaning. During REM sleep, These systems interact in a neurochemically unique state, and research suggests this interaction is where the emotional charge of a memory can be gradually modulated over multiple nights of sleep. A painful memory does not need to be forgotten to heal. It needs to be revisited in the right neurochemical context. Enough times that the brain learns it is safe to hold it without alarm. The experience of positive emotion leaves a different neurochemical signature than the absence of negative emotion. Research by Barbara Fredrickson, whose broaden and build theory has become foundational in positive psychology, has found that positive emotional experiences literally broaden the scope of attention and cognition, expanding the range of thoughts, actions, and connections the mind considers. Over time, positive emotional experiences build psychological resources, resilience, social connection, cognitive flexibility. These resources serve as buffers against future exhaustion. The small moments of warmth, humor, beauty, or connection within an otherwise demanding day are not trivial. They are investments in the brain's recovery infrastructure. The feeling of being seen, of being genuinely understood by another person, has a neurological component. Research using fMRI has shown that accurate interpersonal understanding on both sides of a social exchange produces a neural synchrony between participants, a kind of shared brain activity pattern. This synchrony is associated with feelings of closeness and trust, and with reduced threat activation, feeling unseen. By contrast, leaves a quiet activation, a social dissonance the brain continues to process. If you went through today feeling more invisible than witnessed, your brain is still carrying some of that. It will process it tonight, and it will be lighter by morning. Acceptance. The psychological stance of allowing experience to be what it is without fighting it has measurable effects on emotional recovery. Acceptance-based approaches in psychology, including acceptance and commitment therapy, have been shown to reduce the secondary suffering produced not by difficult experiences themselves, but by the struggle against them. The brain that resists what is already happening expends enormous regulatory energy in that resistance. The brain that accepts, that says, yes, today was hard, and that is true, moves more quickly toward integration and recovery. Acceptance is not resignation. It is the release of resistance. And resistance, the nervous system now knows, is exhausting. The concept of post-traumatic growth, positive psychological change following genuinely difficult experiences, has been studied for decades. Research by Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun has documented consistent patterns of growth in individuals who have faced and processed significant challenges. Increased appreciation for life, deepened relationships, enhanced personal strength, identification of new possibilities, and spiritual or existential development. The difficult days, the ones that cost the most, are not simply to be endured. They are, with time and integration, the days from which the deepest growth tends to emerge. Not every hard day produces growth, but no growth comes without some hardness. This does not make the hard days easy. It makes them meaningful. Narrative identity. The story you tell yourself about who you are and what your life means is constructed and revised continuously through memory consolidation. Research by Dan McAdams and others in personality psychology has found that individuals who construct coherent, Meaning-infused narratives of their difficult experiences show better psychological well-being and greater resilience than those who leave the narrative fragmented. Sleep is part of how fragmented experience becomes narrative. The brain that works overnight on integrating the day's events is, in a quiet way, working on the story of your life. And the story being written tonight is one in which you are someone who keeps going, and rests, and rises again. Research on emotional labor, first systematically described by sociologist Ali Hochschild in her landmark work on flight attendants, has expanded to show that the psychological demands of managing emotion in professional contexts carry genuine health costs. Studies have linked chronic emotional labor to cardiovascular risk, reduced immune function, and increased vulnerability to depression and anxiety. But research has also found that when emotional labor is paired with genuine felt connection, when the performed emotion is not entirely disconnected from an authentic one, the cost is meaningfully lower. The moments today when your care was real, not performed, were the moments that cost you less. Authenticity is its own form of efficiency. The insula, the folded cortical region involved in interoception and the sense of a felt self, plays an important role in empathy and emotional awareness. Research has found that insular activity increases during experiences of compassion, and that highly empathic individuals show greater insular engagement during others' emotional experiences. This is why emotional contagion, absorbing others' feelings, tends to run deeper in naturally empathic people. The sensitivity that made today more tiring is the same sensitivity that makes you someone worth being around. The cost and the gift are, again, inseparably, social support, genuine, accessible, reciprocal social connection is one of the most robust predictors of health and resilience in the psychological literature. Meta-analyses spanning decades of research consistently find that perceived social support is associated with lower cortisol reactivity, faster recovery from stress, and meaningfully longer, healthier lives. The mechanism is partially neurological. Social connection activates the brain's reward systems, reduces threat reactivity, and supports the parasympathetic shift into recovery. The face of someone who understands you, the sound of a familiar voice, the presence of someone who has stayed. These are not soft comfort. They are hard biology. The experience of gratitude, genuinely noticing and appreciating positive aspects of one's experience, has been shown to modulate activity in the medial prefrontal cortex and the anterior cingulate cortex. Research has found that gratitude interventions produce increases in well-being that persist beyond the intervention period, and that regularly reflecting on positive events helps shift the brain's attention bias away from threat monitoring. Gratitude is not a denial of difficulty. It is a deliberate widening of focus. What you are grateful for tonight need not be large. The warmth of this bed, the fact of this rest, the fact that tomorrow exists. The polyvagal theory, developed by Stephen Porges, proposes a hierarchical model of the autonomic nervous system with 3 states: the ventral vagal state of social engagement, the sympathetic state of mobilization, and the dorsal vagal state of shutdown and collapse. Most of everyday social life operates in the ventral vagal state, but moving between social engagement and withdrawal, performing and resting, connecting and separating throughout the day creates autonomic variability that, accumulated, produces fatigue. What the nervous system needs at the end of such a day is a sustained period of ventral vagal safety, the neurological experience of being genuinely unchallenged, safe. That experience is available to you right now, in this quiet. Meaning, the sense that one's experiences and efforts are part of something larger and purposeful, is a psychological variable with measurable neurobiological effects. Research has found that individuals with higher scores on meaning in life measures show lower cortisol reactivity, reduced inflammatory markers, and greater resilience to stress. Viktor Frankl, who developed logotherapy from the experience of surviving the most harrowing conditions imaginable, observed that meaning was a more powerful survival resource than circumstance. The days that drain us most are often the ones where meaning felt farthest away, and the nights of deepest rest often follow from a quiet return to why any of it matters. The question of whether adult brains can grow new neurons has become one of neuroscience's most fascinating ongoing conversations. Evidence from animal studies has consistently shown new neuron formation in the hippocampus throughout adulthood, and some human studies suggest a version of this may continue in people as well. Though the research is still unfolding, what researchers across different positions agree on is this: sleep, reduced chronic stress, and meaningful rest support the conditions under which the brain maintains and renews itself most effectively. The brain you have tonight is not the fixed, unchanging organ it was once thought to be, and the sleep you are approaching is one of its most powerful renewal mechanisms. Heart rate variability, the variation in time intervals between heartbeats, is considered one of the most reliable physiological markers of overall health and resilience. Higher heart rate variability reflects greater parasympathetic tone and is associated with better emotional regulation, lower risk of cardiovascular disease, and stronger immune function. Research has consistently found that sleep, particularly slow-wave sleep, is one of the most powerful ways to restore heart rate variability after it has been reduced by a day of emotional demand. The heart is not simply pumping blood tonight, it is regulating. And every slow, easy breath you take right now is helping your heart find its rhythm again. Here, 3/4 of the way through our journey, the full shape of the answer becomes clear. Emotional exhaustion is not a failure of character or a sign that you cannot handle your life. It is the predictable, measurable, biological consequence of a brain that has been fully engaged, regulating, empathizing, deciding, suppressing, performing, absorbing, caring. And the remedy is not simply more sleep. Though sleep is essential, it is a genuine, skilled, biological recovery. Sleep that is deep enough, rest that is complete enough, self-compassion that is real enough, meaning that is close enough to make the effort feel worth it again. You already know how to do all of this. Your body has never forgotten. Sleep does not come when you pursue it. It comes when you stop. This is not metaphor. It is the physiology of sleep onset. The more the prefrontal cortex releases its supervisory grip, the more easily the brain transitions into sleep. Right now, in this moment, you are already releasing. The monitoring is quieting. The narrating is softening. The effort to stay is becoming less than the ease of letting go. You don't have to do anything more tonight. Everything that needed doing has been done. Let go. The nervous system learns safety the way it learns everything else. Through repetition. Each night of rest teaches the body that the day can end, that the world can hold itself without your watching, that you can set down what you carry and find it still there in the morning. Slowly, over time, rest becomes easier, trust becomes deeper. The body remembers how to let go because you have let it practice. Tears, even those shed alone, in private, for no particular reason, have a physiological function. Research has found that emotional tears contain higher concentrations of stress hormones than reflex tears. The act of crying appears to be, in part, a biochemical release, a way the body disposes of accumulated stress chemistry. If you have felt close to tears today, or found release in them, that is not weakness. That is the body knowing what it needs. The capacity to cry is a form of biological intelligence. The body's temperature drops by 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit during sleep onset. This cooling is not a side effect of sleep. It is a trigger for it. The suprachiasmatic nucleus coordinates with temperature regulation centers in the hypothalamus to initiate this cooling in the evening hours. A warm bath before sleep, followed by the body's natural cooling response, can accelerate sleep onset. The slight chill of pulling the covers closer, the warmth of the space beneath them. These sensations are part of the sleep architecture. The body knows exactly what it is doing. Adenosine, the chemical that creates sleep pressure, has been accumulating since you woke this morning. Every waking hour adds to the load. By now, after the day you have had, the pressure is deep and real. Adenosine binds to receptors in the basal forebrain and other regions, slowing neural activity and generating the felt heaviness of genuine tiredness. Caffeine works by blocking these receptors, but it cannot stop the accumulation, only delay the felt signal. Now, with nothing blocking it, the full weight of the day is available to carry you down. Let it. There is no wasted rest. Even lying still, in a dark room, without sleeping, the body is recovering. Blood pressure falls. Muscle tension releases. The immune system shifts its resources. Growth hormone begins to rise. Even the lightest rest produces measurable physiological restoration. You do not need to achieve the perfect deep sleep tonight for this night to matter. Whatever depth you find, whatever quiet you reach, the body will use it. The body wastes nothing. The brain's emotional processing continues during sleep. Research using EEG and neuroimaging has observed that the amygdala remains active during REM sleep, but in a neurochemical environment that is fundamentally different from waking. Without norepinephrine, the amygdala processes emotional material without the same reactive urgency. This is the nightly therapy session that no one schedules. It happens without your instruction. Whatever you felt today, the frustration, the loneliness, the small victories, the unnamed weight, the sleeping brain will work on it all. You don't need to resolve anything tonight. The resolution is already in motion. The average person generates between 3 and 6 dreams per night, though most are forgotten within minutes of waking. Dreams appear to serve multiple functions: memory consolidation, emotional processing, threat simulation, and creative association. Research suggests that dreams are not random noise, but organized experiences. The sleeping brain running scenarios, integrating information, processing what the emotional labor of today meant at a level deeper than words can reach. Whether or not you remember your dreams, They will be there tonight. The mind's private language, speaking to itself in images, quietly completing what the day began. The exhale is the more powerful half of the breath. Research in respiratory physiology has found that the exhale activates the parasympathetic nervous system more directly than the inhale, which briefly activates the sympathetic system, slowing the exhale, making it slightly longer than the inhale, is one of the simplest and most effective ways to shift the nervous system toward rest. Every long, slow breath out you take right now is an act of active recovery. The body knows the difference, and it is responding gently to every quiet exhale you allow. The immune system does much of its repair work at night. Natural killer cells, components of the immune system that identify and eliminate damaged or abnormal cells, show increased activity during sleep. Cytokine production shifts from inflammatory to anti-inflammatory profiles during deep sleep. The emotional demands of today have been a form of sustained mild stress on the immune system. Tonight, as sleep deepens, the immune system will begin the quiet work of recalibration. The body does not separate emotional health from immune health. They are the same system, under different names. The capacity for connection, the ability to reach another person, to be reached, is preserved and restored during sleep. Sleep deprivation reduces activity in the social engagement circuits of the prefrontal cortex and reduces the ability to accurately read others' emotional expressions. Rest restores both. The version of you who will wake tomorrow will be more present, more patient, more genuinely available to the people you love. Sleep is not a retreat from connection. It is how connection remains possible. Your heart beats roughly 100,000 times per day. Each beat is a wave of electrical activity moving through chambers that have been doing this work, rhythmically, without rest. Since before you were born, the heart does not stop to rest, but it recovers between beats. A microsecond of diastole, of release, of filling again. Life, at its most basic level, is the alternation of effort and release. You are part of that rhythm. Tonight is your diastole, your filling. The brain never returns to exactly the same state it was in before a significant experience. Every meaningful day changes the neural architecture slightly. New synaptic connections have formed. Existing ones have been strengthened or pruned. The person who falls asleep tonight carries the slight structural imprint of every conversation, every feeling, every choice that was made today. You are not the same person you were this morning, and the person who wakes tomorrow will be shaped, in very small ways, by the quality of this night's rest. Every sleep is also a becoming. Forgiveness, releasing the internal hold of resentment, has been associated in research with reduced cardiovascular reactivity, lower cortisol levels, and a general easing of the physiological cost of sustained grievance. Research by Fred Laskin at Stanford has documented meaningful health improvements associated with forgiveness practices. If there is something you have been carrying from today, a small injustice, an unkind moment, a disappointment, setting it down, just for tonight, is its own form of rest. The body cannot fully soften while it is still holding a grievance. And tonight, softening is the only thing that needs to happen. Early research has suggested that experiences of awe, that quiet sense of something larger than oneself, may help loosen the grip of the narrow, self-focused concerns that emotional exhaustion tends to tighten, or appears to produce what researchers call a small self effect, a softening of the boundary between self and world. The experience does not require a mountain or an ocean. It requires only a genuine moment of contact with something larger than the day's demands. What you are touching right now, in the quiet, that is enough. The science of rest, genuine restoration, has begun to distinguish between passive recovery and active recovery. Passive recovery is simply the cessation of effort, lying still, sleeping. Active recovery involves the engaged, gentle restoration of depleted systems, light movement, social warmth, time in nature, creative expression, meaningful quiet. Both are necessary. Neither alone is sufficient. The night offers passive recovery in abundance, and what it asks of you is extraordinarily simple. Just stop. Just breathe. Just let the dark have this hour. That is all. That is everything. The sense of smell, olfaction, is the only sensory system that bypasses the thalamus and connects directly to the limbic system, including the amygdala and hippocampus. This is why scent is so powerfully tied to emotion and memory. Certain familiar scents, the smell of a pillow, a blanket, a room you know as safe, signal directly to the amygdala through pathways older than language. Research has found that these olfactory safety signals can reduce amygdala reactivity in ways that are immediate and automatic. Your bedroom is sending your brain safety signals right now, without any effort from you. The body already knows this place is safe. The brain's resting metabolic rate, the energy it consumes during rest, is approximately 20% of the body's total energy expenditure, despite comprising only about 2% of its mass. The brain is metabolically generous with itself. During sleep, energy is redirected from the high consumption areas of sustained attention and executive function toward maintenance, repair, and consolidation processes. The brain that spent so much energy today on emotional regulation is now quietly reinvesting that energy in tomorrow. The brain at rest is not wasting resources. It is preparing. The last thing most people experience before falling asleep is a thought, not a resolution, not a conclusion, but a simple, quiet thought, a small, drifting observation. Then another. Then the spaces between them grow longer. Then the thoughts stop arriving on schedule. Then, somewhere in the softening, the boundary between waking and dreaming dissolves, and sleep begins. This transition, so ordinary, so deeply strange, has been happening for every human who has ever lived. Tonight, it is happening for you. The spaces between thoughts are already widening. There is nothing left to do but notice. The science of sleep, in all its complexity, arrives finally at a simple truth. The body knows how to rest. It has known since before you were born. Before language, before memory, before the first day you ever had to carry anything. The drive towards sleep is one of the oldest, most insistent biological imperatives that exists. You do not have to create it. You do not have to earn it. You only have to stop resisting it. The machinery of rest is already running. It has been waiting all day for this moment. And now that moment is here. Everything you process today, every feeling, every decision, every moment of empathy or restraint, will be integrated by morning into a version of you that is more whole than the one who lay down tonight. The science of sleep consolidation tells us this with remarkable consistency. The sleeping brain is not passive. It is completing something. The day is not finished when you stop living it. It is finished when you finish sleeping on it. You are not pausing tonight. You are completing. The heart, the lungs, the brain, the immune system, the endocrine system. All of them are already shifting toward restoration, without instruction, without effort, without your supervision. They have been waiting for the moment you lay down and released the day. And now that you have, they are doing what they have always done, in every body, on every night, across all of human history, the oldest collaboration there is, body and sleep, each one making the other possible. Somewhere in the world tonight, millions of nervous systems are doing exactly what yours is doing right now. Slowing, releasing, drifting toward the repair that only sleep can offer. You are not alone in this tiredness. You are not alone in needing this rest. The emotional labor of being human is a labor every human shares, and the rest that follows is the same for all of us. Deep, wordless, ancient, and kind. The night has always held this, long before science had words for the glymphatic system, for REM consolidation, for vagal tone restoration. Human beings have lain down in the dark and allowed something larger than understanding to carry them through until morning. The science simply gives language to what the body has always known. Rest is not the interruption of life. It is the condition under which life continues. You are not withdrawing from the world tonight. You are preparing, in the deepest possible way, to return to it. And here, at the end of 100 quiet truths, the answer that this journey was always moving toward. You are not emotionally exhausted because something is wrong with you. You are emotionally exhausted because you are fully present, because you felt things and carried things and stayed in difficult moments and cared when caring was hard. The exhaustion is the proof. The rest is the response. And tomorrow, rested, restored, quieter, you will be capable of all of it again. That is not a burden. That is the profound resilience of the human mind, reaffirming itself, in the dark, one night at a time. And so our quiet journey through the science of emotional exhaustion comes gently to a close. We began with the amygdala, that ancient, tireless guardian, processing the world's emotional signals faster than thought could follow. We discovered that the tens of thousands of decisions, the surface acting, the empathic simulations, the sustained vigilance of being a feeling person in a demanding world, all of it is genuine labor, leaving a measurable trace. And we ended with a truth the brain has known far longer than science found words for it. That rest is not the reward for surviving the day. It is the biological completion of it. The sleeping brain, working through the night on everything today, meant that is not recovery from life. That is life, continuing in a different key. If there is one thing worth carrying gently into sleep tonight, let it be this. The heaviness you felt when you lay down was not a sign that something was wrong. It was the honest weight of someone who gave today everything they had. Emotional exhaustion reminds us that feeling is not decoration. It is the substance of human life, and it costs something real. The same circuits that make you capable of care, of patience, of genuine presence, are the circuits that grow tired. The wound and the gift have always shared the same address. But perhaps what the science quietly reveals, in all its careful detail, is something even the most rigorous researcher might whisper at the end: that you were never meant to do this alone, and never meant to do it without rest. The body built in the remedy alongside the demand. Every day of effort contains already the night that follows it. In these final minutes, take the deepest breath you can, as deep as possible. Think about the unity of every mind that has ever laid down exhausted at the end of a day of genuine caring. Every parent, every healer, every person who stayed in a difficult room when it would have been easier to leave. All of them, across all of human time, arriving at this same moment, this same dark, this same release. Your consciousness, this awareness that has been watching and feeling and carrying all day, is not a separate thing floating in a body. It is the body, knowing itself. And tonight, it is ready to dissolve into rest the way a thought dissolves into sleep, gently, without resistance, without boundary, without end. Let your entire being soften into the space between waking and dreaming, where the mind finally stops translating itself for anyone. Prepare for deep sleep. No boundaries left, only peace. If tonight's journey through the science of emotional exhaustion found you at exactly the right moment, if something here named what you've been carrying, a quiet share might carry it to someone else who is lying in the dark right now, wondering why they're so tired, and needing to know that it makes sense. One worn-out mind, finding rest, one night at a time. The brain's nightly work is already underway. Processing, clearing, restoring, without your effort, without your witness. You don't need to hold any of this. It was never yours to carry through the dark. You've traveled inward tonight, through corridors most people never pause to notice. You touched the architecture of what it means to feel, and to care, and to spend yourself on a day that asked for all of it, and you found it. In the end, not broken, only tired, only human, only in need of this. You can allow these thoughts of emotional labor to fade now, like the last image of a dream at dawn, present, then softer, then simply part of everything, leaving only the quiet, unheld calm behind. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body feel heavier, as if all you have been carrying today is being received by something that knows exactly what to do with it, and is simply holding you. If sleep comes, let it carry you the way consolidation does, not with force, but with quiet intention, into a realm where time and weight no longer matter. If your eyes are still open, the next video is waiting for you, ready to continue the journey. But if they're closed, stay there. Stay in the darkness that feels safe and warm. Tomorrow, the mind that cared so much today will still be there, still tending, still weaving, still becoming. But tonight belongs to stillness. Rest well, gentle explorer, and remember, your mind is always rewriting toward the light. Good night.